process. Now, the exercise, which was scheduled to close at exactly 5 p.m., and now it is exactly 5 p.m. Throughout the day, voters have been filling in to cast their votes, filing to cast their ballots to elect a new member of parliament for that particular constituency. We will continue to monitor developments across as counting is expected to begin very shortly. But for now, we will be crossing over to my colleagues who are in the studio on TV3 for more updates and analysis on the Yawasu East by-election. Stay tuned.
The national outcomes, the national results proper, that where you have people not showing up, it tends to favor the opposition parties more than the incumbent party.
But then again, you take into, even with absolutely.
So all those are very
and this is the party in power, the incumbent, and all of these dynamics will play in. But then again, if you look at the margin of victory, let's flip that. You see the margin of victory for the NDC since this election started. In fact, the constituency was created, as a matter of fact. This projection by Musa Dankwa, and I did indicate earlier, this projection by Musa Dankwa is by far the highest that the NDC has won in this constituency, if you look at it, because over time, in fact, in the 2024 elections, the margin of victory, the NDC, the late member of parliament, Honorable Toure, won with 70 percentage point of the valid vote cast. The year before, it was just about 68% thereabout. And then you see consistently, they've won between 60 to 70% of the valid vote cast. But Musa Dankwa's prediction is that Alhaj Baba Jamal will win by 75 percentage points of the valid vote cast. That's the highest since 1996, since this constituency was created. It's been NDC all through and through. But then again, this is what we see in 2024, 70%. But 75% for Musa Dankwa, that's what he says. This is it.
Absolutely. That will be very interesting. And I think this helps put the data in a bit of perspective on the MPP performance as well. The MP performance has not particularly been that consistent. And we'll look at two data points, 2016 and that of 2020. So 2016, 36.1%. They increased to 38.2% for 2020, but it dropped to 28.8% in 2024. And Alfred has made reference to 2024 because of the high number, 70%. And if you look at it across board, all the way from 1996, you see that that will be the highest. So, I mean, if Baba Jamal's, the prediction, what he's saying in terms of Baba Jamal's outcome is anything to go by, that will put him outside of that particular range, which is the point that is being made that, well, would that be possible given the range that they've seen so far? That is a big question that we would have to ask, given the context that these numbers are general election numbers. And we always want to emphasize that point because the general election outcomes are generally a bit different because of the presence of the presidential candidates. They drive people to come out in their numbers to vote. And so when you are still getting these numbers, one would argue that, well, it does appear that there was a period here maybe between the 2000 period all the way to 2020 that the MPP appeared, even though not on a consistent trend in terms of moving one direction, but they drop, they move up a little, they drop, they come up a little again, as we see ended here in 2020. But unfortunately, the story was quite different in 2024, Alfred. So very interesting numbers there. We should be inching close of polls now.
Close of polls, yes. The polls have closed as we speak across all 114 polling stations in the Yawasu East constituency. 11 electoral areas we're keeping an eye on. We're going to show you the 10 most populous polling stations in terms of the registered voters. We'll tell you shortly. George Quaining is at the Coalition Center right now, and the IGP has also visited the Coalition Center and other areas in the constituency. George, tell us exactly what's happening where you are.
Okay. Thank you. A very good evening, and this is the Nima West Electoral Area Command Center, and this is the vehicle of the IGP. He came to get final briefing, and so from here, it's heading to the Coalition Center, which is at the state. So that's him. He's moving his officers after doing a great job, and so he got briefing here at the Nima West Electoral Area Command Center, right? Like I already mentioned, he's moving here to the Coalition Center where the declaration will be held. So all the polling centers, the polls have closed. And we're expecting to get all these ballot counted at these various polling centers, and the final one declared at the polling center. So security has been very tight at this very constituency, and so it's a reason why there was no sort of trouble of violence emanating in this very by-election. Some 45,000 voters, actually advanced voters of this very by-election, and voter turnout has not been very impressive. And so yeah, let's see how the and show of process and to give you all the very active but also this is what it is. The IGP is here in front of the Asian Center, where the English and from previously related to one center, tell them fast and work for all the very useful stuff that so we'll keep updates here when the GTV information out there.
Perfect. George, thank you so much. And we saw the IGP's vehicle move from that polling station, is visiting other polling stations, and eventually be at the coalition center. The security situation is well grounded, as we see them. But here's what we do know, that what is going to be happening in the next couple of hours ahead of us is in threefold. There's going to be the sorting, and then there's going to be the counting, and then the declaration. We understand as the polls have closed right now, the sorting has started at a number of the polling stations as we're monitoring right now here on your Election Command Center. We're live on 3FM 92.7, also on TV3 Ghana on Facebook, DSTV channel 279, all across the world on 3news.com. Kem, now the point that Joseph made before we cross over to George about the voter trends and then also the trend of the victory for the NDC. Musa Dankwa's prediction is by far going to be the highest in terms of the margin of victory for any NDC candidate. 75%. The highest they've gone in this constituency was the last election, 70% victory margin that the late the Honorable Ture won for the NDC in that constituency. Maybe we want to find out what's influencing this.
Absolutely. And Alfred, I think Musa Dankwa has already hinted to the fact that, look, based on their polls, 81% of the people there, excuse me, think that the country is headed in the right direction. And that could be a reason that parts this a little bit. But the gentleman is here with me. I want to pick on something else that Blay has pointed out, right? That 2.5% from Umar Sanda, who's a former member of the NDC, and how it could influence the place of the NDC, not only in this election, because obviously it won't have a significant effect on the winner of the poll today, as is predicted by Baba Jamal, but it could have an effect on how the NDC rallies itself going forward. And Musa Dankwa, we've seen things like this before. A candidate goes separate ways. Maybe they have a good showing, maybe they don't have a good showing, but at the end of the day, we see that it leaves the party wanting at a grassroots. And as we've heard Alfred say, Umar Sanda is a grassroots person. As far as the constituency is concerned, more importantly, Nima. What's your take on this?
Look, political parties have a way of doing things. And Umaru Sanda is an assemblyman, grassroots. If he was at the level of former MP, to the level that he is at, will determine the kind of sway he will have in the constituency. The power he has now is really about assembly elections, not constituency level elections. So if it was, let's say, Haji Amina, who went independent, then the impact could be very significant. Or any of the guys who contested the primaries and they lost, if they had gone the other way, it would have been a bit different.
Even outside of tonight, you don't think that there will be need for some rallying going forward?
Look, the party is bigger than one individual. And they have their own way of sorting things out. I don't believe he's a too big fish to derail NDC in Iwasu East. And look, see, there is their stronghold. It's not a swing constituency where small disaffection could impact on 10, 20 vote. You know, in some cases, people won election by 15, 20 vote. Nima is a stronghold, or I was is NDC stronghold. So the impact will be very negligible.
Why do you think that? And when we look at the demographic of this area, we have the urban side, we have the non-urban side. You know, just to put it mildly, right? Why do you think that, despite what some people have said, look, these non-urban sides have not had a lot of development? And I'm not talking roads, because by virtue of where it is, there are good roads in Ayawaso East, right? Why do you think, despite that, this constituency continues to stand by the NDC?
It's again, it's demographic.
Right.
Demography. Look, if you look at the people who live in Nima, take away the Mole Dagbani group, the biggest so far in Nima. The other ethnic groups are groups that are known to be NDC sympathizers. The Hausa group, maybe the Chamba group, the Kotokoli group, the Kusuntu. These are ethnic groups or tribes within the ethnic groups that tend to support NDC. And indeed, these are the same tribes that, if you want to go back to history, suffered during the Aliens Compliance Order of 1969. So they traced their support for NDC back to those times. And that hasn't changed. Though Kufuor tried a lot to kind of, water down that effect. But it's the reason why so many of such groups, minority groups, coalesce around the NDC people.
Can the NDC afford to be complacent in Ayawaso East?
No, we can't be complacent anywhere. You need to always galvanize as much as we can.
Right.
You want to maximize your vote, so you can't be complacent. The difference between Nima and other places that we've seen the by-election is that, look, Nima is an urban, it's already built up. What can you do with that? Right? So as an MP, your challenges are around soft issues. Education access, maybe those scholarships, employment, skills training, and that kind of thing, and maybe crime reduction and other things. And maybe sanitation, because if you pull Nima at the moment, one of the big issues they face is sanitation.
Absolutely. And Mr. Dankwa, I'll let you finish that point, but we're seeing some pictures from the constituency where sorting of the ballot has begun. Remember, it's 13 minutes after polls closed at 5 p.m. Your election command center is taking you through until declaration, and sorting has begun at some polling stations right now. We'll go on the ground shortly and then bring you sights and sounds from there. But Mr. Dankwa, you've been talking about sanitation. I want you to finish that point so that we deal a bit more with the development issues. Yeah.
So when you do a survey in Nima, you see sanitation being high up, and drainage. And when it comes to drainage, you could see that it won't take it's going to take a longer period of time to deal with the drainage situation. The big one that's being done on the Kanda down there is one of the biggest challenges, and they're dealing with that. But within the Nima community, there are some challenges that is drainage and sanitation. Once you're able to deal with sanitation in particular, I think a lot of people will be satisfied. And then you address the employment issue, the health access, and those kind of things. But you don't need big ticket items like in schools.
Because by virtue of its geographical placement, those things exist. Yeah, and I've covered Nima on and off, or in and out of the studio over the years as a journalist. And I think that despite attempts over the years to improve the livelihoods there, things improve only up to a point, but not appreciable enough. I'm tempted to ask why that is the case. Why do you think we move forward, but not forward enough?
Look, the only way you can move people en masse from poverty is education. You've seen a lot of improvement in education, access to education. I think in the past, people tend to rely on just the Islamic education, but now they have been attending the secular schools, and they have people who have degrees in NIMA, senior high and junior high. But there's still quite high number of people who have no formal education in NIMA. That's where skills development is very important. So there are so many ways you can address issues of NIMA, but you must understand the issue from really ground, not really about these cosmetics. And also, look, people of NIMA travel a lot. If you go to Europe right now, a lot of them are from NIMA. Go to Germany, Holland, I live those, so I know. They travel quite a lot.
Right.
So NIMA is a very vibrant community, and everything that you have, you can have it in NIMA. The good, the bad, and the worst are all in NIMA. So their needs are different from other constituencies, and you need to really have a very holistic view of how to bring development to them. And their development, as I emphasize, is not of hard infrastructure, but soft development.
Sanitation, drainage, education, like you've mentioned. But one of the things you covered in your polls is about vote buying incidents in the NDC primary. And 83% of your respondents said they were concerned about that. Did that surprise you?
No. You see, Ghanaian voters are very discerning. The kind of people we have voting now are not the same as those who were voting in Rawlings' time, 1992, 96, 2000, even 2012. It's changed quite dramatically. So things that we were otherwise tolerating these days are not tolerated.
Yeah.
So people know what is not right for them, and they'll speak about it. But the problem is that in NIMA, they were not happy with the situation, but it didn't change their vote because they are still loyal to the NDC.
No. No, explain that to me, right? Because 83% told you that they are concerned about vote buying in the primary.
Yes.
We see the same 83% tell you they are concerned about monetization of Ghana's democracy. And so those who took the money and the gifts, well, I'll come back to the issue of monocracy, because I wanted to ask you, who are those then who took the gifts?
Those are delegates. They're not general voters.
Oh no, but they will be voting today.
Oh, but they'll be very harmful in terms of compared to the general voters.
But some of them will be voting.
They will certainly be voting. In fact, the one who will be there early in the morning to vote.
Right. I want to go onto the ground now and bring you some sights and sounds from there. Where you see are live pictures of the sorting process in in the collation center. Would that be correct? Which polling station now we're looking at? This is the polling station, and the sorting and counting has begun already. Let's listen in, and then we'll come back into the studio.
Three FM.
So these are live pictures from the Alhaji Idrisu number 2.
92.7. 3FM 92.7.
3 FM. 3 FM.
3FM 92.7. 3FM
who's a former
92.7.
member of the NDC and an independent candidate in this by-election. Next is the NDC. The candidate for that party, Alhaji Baba Jamal Ahmed, and those are the ballot cast for him. Next to that is the NPP's ballot. Ali Seidu. Those are the votes cast for the candidate for the MPP. Mr. Dankwa is still here with me. I want to wrap it up with Mr. Dankwa, and then we'll go full throttle on the ground. Remember, we are live also on 392.7 FM, but it's best to listen to us there. Also, watch us on Facebook.com or YouTube. Mr. Dankwa, now we are seeing the process come to a close step by step, right? Sorting is taking place, counting is taking place. This is one of the biggest polling stations, and so you are not surprised by what you're seeing so far.
No, we haven't had any numbers.
We haven't had any, but we can see. We haven't also mentioned any numbers, but we can see what's going on, and it would appear that there was good turnout over here. This is Baba Jamal's
which electoral area is this one? That's what I want to know.
Oh, which electoral area?
Yeah.
I have my producers get that for us, but this is Alhaji Idrisu house, house 1 or 2. This is Alhaji Idrisu house 1, where I think Baba Jamal voted in house 2, which is just the opposite side, and it would appear that there was good turnout here based on what we are seeing so far. But I was asking earlier on the issues of the vote buying. If 83% of the people are saying that, look,
92.7.
I don't like this, then who are those who take the gifts and those who take the monies?
Look, this poll is among general voters. Those who took the money and the TV sets are delegates. They are not among even though they are part of the general voters, but they are not. They are the micro minority within the general voters. There are about 50,000 or so voters in Iowa East, and there are only about 1,100 or so delegates. So it's a fraction of that. But generally, what people told us is that they're not happy with what they saw, and they wish it hasn't happened, and they are concerned about money becoming a big issue in our democracy. But when you ask them whether that would influence them to vote in their vote, 80% said no, it won't influence them. It's because it's NDC stronghold. If this had happened in a swing constituency, it would have been disaster.
I see. Musa Nakwa, by the end of today, your differences between you and Baba Jamal would have been resolved.
No.
Am I also predicting correct?
No, you see,
my poll is correct here.
Look. These guys are politicians. They're not like you and I, who will be frank with each other. When they have the camera, their language and everything changes. So let's leave it there.
Thank you very much
My
for
pleasure.
joining us on this coverage. Musa Dankwa is Executive Director for Global Info Analytics. Counting has begun at Alhaji Idrisu House number 1. Let's listen in now.
9, 10, 31, 32. MPP had 32. And we are going to end this.
As you see live on your screens and listen to us on Radio 3 FM 92.7, counting has begun at Alhaji Idrisu House number 1 polling center. Shortly, We will return there. In the meantime, let's head for Pentecost Emmanuel Temple, where Evelyn Tingma is on standby for us. Evelyn, what can you report from there?
So, company counting here has ended, I must say, and we have 2 centers here during the process. The 2 centers have all finished counting their ballots here, and I'll run you through what we had here. So, for Center 1, we were expecting a total number of 388 people to cast their ballots, but at the end of the day, 173 people voted. And out of that, for Center 1, the NPP, Baba Ali, had 30 votes, 3-0. Baba Jamal of the NDC, 68 votes, 6-8. LPG, 0. Independent candidate, Sanda Mohammed, had 74 votes, 7-4. And the other independent candidate had 0. So now for Center 2, we were expecting 417 voters. At the end of the day, 186 people cast their ballots. And out of that, Baba Ali of the NPP had 29 votes. Baba Jamal,
you are listening to the
of the NDC had 71 votes. And the independent candidate, Sanda Mohammed, had 86. Sanda Mohammed here, who won all the 2 centers here at the Pentecost Emmanuel Temple here. So that is the result that we have here. Evelyn,
let's go over the numbers again.
So for polling center 1, Baba Ali of the NPP had 30 votes, 3-0. Baba Jamal had 68 votes, 6-8. And independent candidate Sanda Mohammed had 74 votes, 7-4. Now for Center 2, we had Baba Ali of the NPP garnering 29 votes, 2-9. Baba Jamal of the NDC had 71 votes, 7-1. And then independent candidate Sanda Mohammed had 86 votes, 8-6.
Very well, Evelyn, thank you so much for bringing us those numbers. Alfred and Blay, we're just starting to get our very first results stream into our studio. Surprisingly, Umar Sanda, the independent candidate at the Pentecost Emmanuel polling centers 1 and 2, he appears to be in the lead ahead of the NDC candidate.
I'll tell you what. If you reference what we said earlier, this may probably not come as a big surprise. I did indicate to you that this is a grassroots man, which Musa Dankwa confirmed that he is an assembly member. If we know grassroots politics, all politics is local, and that's what we do now. So writing off Umar Sanda Mohammed would be a very big mistake, and that's why for me the 2.4% that was allocated to him by Musa Dankwa in this forecast may be one that, at least if the trends are anything to go by, probably will be revising our notes in that regard. Because I did some checks on him. He's a man who, yes, you don't see him in the front line of the NDC, but in some previous elections, he's worked on the ground, mobilizing grassroots within that constituency for the NDC. And that's why, at least based on the pointers that the former GFA spokesperson Ibrahim Sanidara gave in that write-up, I was looking out for what Umar Sanda Mohammed was going to do. And so with what we are seeing now, clearly no surprise, 2 police stations out of 114, obviously it's a long way, but it's a statement, okay? It's a statement that you cannot discount, because if this man who decided to go independent did not even contest in the primaries, take note. If he had contested in the primaries, the dynamics probably would be different. Now, he didn't contest in the primaries, decides to go independent, and he's already winning some polling stations. That clearly tells you what's happening there in that constituency, is it not?
An interesting thing I noticed with the results that she put out, it has to do with the voter turnout, and the NDC will be worried if they see these numbers as well, because for the center, the first center, they were expecting 388 individuals to come and vote. 173 showed up. So that's less than 50%. So you have 215 people failing to show up to participate in this particular election. Then the independent candidate emerges victorious with 74. Baba Jamal follows and not too far off with 68. The second center, where she brought us the results as well, 417 were expected to vote. Those who showed up were 186. Again, less than 50% showing up to vote. 231 individuals did not show up to vote. Then Sanda emerges victorious with 86, with the NDC following with 71 as well. So interesting numbers there. We have some more results, Alfred, that we can bring.
Indeed, and that's what we're going to go on the ground now to get some more details of exactly what's happening now. But then again, the voter turnout that you mentioned is important. And we did reference that earlier, that, look, the turnout was going to be one that will be a big decider.
Even at the time we talked about the turnout, we didn't even put it within the context of the fact that there is an independent candidate in the mix. In fact, we only discussed it within the context of saying that, well, generally, the people do not show up to vote. And so when they do not show up to vote, it becomes a free-for-all fight. And depending on who is able to marshal the numbers, that person will be able to make significant gains. But an important consideration, which we ought to now place within the context of the analysis, will be the fact that there is an independent candidate. So if people are not showing up, it means that there are lesser votes for everyone to fight for. And from even the video that Kemini brought us, the visuals that he brought us from that voting center where the sorting was being done, you could clearly see that Sanda was basically neck and neck with the MPP candidate, so to speak. And so when Evelyn now reports and tells us that he's actually won those two stations that are close to each other, then that begs the question that, well, which one will be his consistent performance? Would that consistent performance be what Evelyn has reported or what we saw where he's close to the MPP candidate? Either ways, it will mean that the NDC numbers may not look too good eventually.
But, Kem, that also brings up another angle. There's something at play as well, that if you're having this low voter turnout, who is losing? Who is being most affected by the low voter turnout? Clearly, it's Baba Jamal. But what we are seeing now, because if these two polling stations that Umar Sanda Mohammed won, the numbers there is anything to go by, we have all of them, over 50% of the registered voters in those polling stations not coming out to vote.
In fact, those who did not show up are more than they accumulated for all those who all they obtained. So if you pick Center 2, for instance, Sanda got 86. Those who did not show up are 231.
Absolute. So, all things being equal, let's just play it that way. That if this voter turnout, the low voter turnout continues in these other polling stations, then the NDC will have something to worry about, is it not?
I want to look at the data, and then also our knowledge of the outcomes of by-elections and elections in general when it comes to voter turnout and the impact on those. So first, let's look at what Musa Dankwa says. He says that irrespective of the turnout, he does not discount that the turnout could have an impact. But even if 3 people turn out, 75% of that he thinks will go for Baba Jamal. Now we get that out of the way. Then we also look at the facts that this election, it won't be only about a win. It will be by what margin the NDC is winning.
Absolutely.
And if this performance we've seen from Umar Sanda Mohammed is replicated in many constituencies, then we expect that notion that the prediction Musa Dankwa has brought out may have could be an impact. But if it continues with more people not turning out than the actual outcome, then it's likely that Musa Dankwa's poll outcome is what we'll see by the end of today. So let's wait and see kind of situation, right?
It's very early days.
Too soon for us to say anything concrete that this is how it's going to go. But it'll be very interesting, fascinating outcome to come tonight.
Yeah, but if there's anything that I can be very certain of, in terms of the turnout, and then that one, it barely changes for all the by-elections that we've done, right from the very first numbers that come in. when we begin to see the turnout numbers, it just plays out subsequently in all the other areas. And so that is one aspect that maybe we may hold it a bit constant and expecting that the proportion who will be getting what and more of what may be what will look a bit different. But potentially the 2.7 may just be too low for him.
It may be too low.
Indeed. That's the point I was making earlier, that when we saw the data from Musa Dankwa, you know, I raised some questions about Umaru Sanda Mohammed's 2.7%. But then again, with this low voter turnout, it could play out in a number of ways. One, we should also be looking at who is being heavily impacted by the low voter turnout. Because clearly, if we're holding that particular factor constant, we are seeing less than 50% of the registered voted in some constituencies, some polling stations, not turning up to vote. Now, if that continues, and maybe in other polling stations we have 50% or less, who is losing as a result of the low voter turnout?
What does it say?
What does it actually also say? And then also, the point we referenced earlier, that we are in a period where in a densely Muslim populated constituency like Ayawaso East, where they're in the Ramadan, they are fasting, and you have to go and queue. Within this period, a lot of people don't want to engage in, you know, a heavily energy-sapping activity. So they would rather stay in their homes. Others, at some point, if you recall, were speaking to George that they wanted the sun to just go low a bit before they come out to vote, because they didn't just want to have the whole bit of having to be in the sun, energy sapped, the ones they're already conserving within this fasting period. And then also this is a working day as well. This constituency is filled with a lot of entrepreneurs. You have, when you go to Nima, you go to Mamobi, 441 and all those places, there are people who own their businesses and they run them. So it's not as though they'll be out of the constituency and so cannot vote, right? But the other issue is they having to leave their businesses, and they'll be concerned enough to want to leave their businesses to go and queue and vote, okay? They had to have a reason to do that. So what I see impacting heavily on this voter turnout is perhaps this Ramadan period that we find ourselves in, and then also the fact that, well, this is a by-election, well, this is foregone conclusion that, you know, the NDC will win, and so let's not be really show up. But that's where the trick is going to play out. And if what Umaru Sanda Mohammed is showing us is anything to go by, then we're in for possibly Umaru Sanda Mohammed showing up more than what Musa Dankwa has given him.
As predicted. And Alfred, it won't be the first time. It won't be the first time that Musa Dankwa may be having it wrong for the candidates that follow. Remember, in the NPP primary as well, the show when Dr. Brian Champong came up with in that primary surpassed what Musa Dankwa had indicated. It surprised all of us here in the studio. We thought he had the sweetest victory in terms of that race, right? We could be seeing the same thing here, and so it shouldn't surprise us. Also, Musa Dankwa says his margin of error is -+3, which means that he gives himself enough room to make a mistake. And so we should see how that goes as well in terms of applying it to what the outcome will be. And again, like Blaise said, it's too soon, it's too early to make any conclusions, but there is a very intriguing start to the race.
The two polling stations, are they part of the top 10 most populous polling stations?
No.
Well, that's another dynamic to look at as well, because then the top 10, let's run through the top 10 polling stations in terms of the voter population, and then also as to how that will play out regarding the voter turnout. Because if we don't see much of these registered voters turning out to vote, then it would feed into the trend we are seeing already. What are the top 10 polling stations by registered voters?
So there is the Alhaji Idrisu, House 2. I think one of those centers, Crosby or one of the other colleagues was present there. So they are looking at 719. Then there is the opposite Club 10 at Kanda, 714. The Frankie's down, house number 77/10, 712. Then there's Surak Mosque, 441, 678. Then the Godson Inter French or English School, that is Anima, that is 6, 5, 7 as well. And with the trend that we've seen so far, we may be doing less than half of these numbers. So we may expect to do maybe 200 here and there. On the average, if you look at the spread that we have on the screen now, we don't expect to cross 250 or even hit 300 for any of these numbers. Then there is the SAL Valley Preparatory School where they are doing 649 registered voters, Kanda GNTC 647, and Old Alaska Cinema Hall, Nima doing 640, and the Frankie's Annex 2, Nima also 640, then 617 for the Frankie's Annex 2, actually 617. Then the final one, the 441 Primary Healthcare Nima 2, also doing 615. So these are the large constituencies where the numbers are very important. And what we'll be doing for our viewers is when the results start coming through and when we start having a lot of polling station results, we are going to put it side by side, compute them and show you how things are looking in terms of whether we've had a bulk of the results come out. We'll also be tracking the voter turnout because it's very significant to the outcome that we are all expecting. And when we look at the voter outcome closely, we'll be able to tell who is likely to gain and who is likely to lose. But these are the 10 centers that we are seeing that we all have to keep our eyes on because this is where the numbers are, and more important, this is where the battle will be. This is where the battleground will basically be. And what we are understanding from the local politics potentially will be that, Alfred, it does appear that where the results was announced earlier on, it appears to be a bit of a stronghold for Sanda, but we'll see how it plays down subsequently in the other areas as well. But very early days yet we see once again a significant vote. And I think in doing the Musa Dankwa projections, we would have to place it within the understanding that Mr. Sanda did not participate in the NDC primaries. It's very important. It's very important because if he had participated, that would give all of us a clear sense of what it's supposed to be. So potentially, if you are an NDC delegate and you are being engaged and they are asking you who you'd want to vote for, I'm not too sure I'll be too comfortable saying that, well, I want to vote for the gentleman who has been suspended from the party.
No, but you see, that's the point I referenced earlier about Umaru Sanda Mohammed's influence. He might have been using the submarine approach where, you know what, I am on the ground, I'm engaging, the media is not talking about me that much. The only thing the media is talking about is that I've been suspended from the NDC, but then the people on the ground, they know me. I've worked with them in previous elections, and so they'll pander to me. And that's why I reference his influence in that constituency. It's quite strong, in fact. With the information we're getting about him, he has played a key role on the quiet for the NDC in previous elections that they have won as well. Yeah.
Jamal himself is also a grassroots person.
True.
If we are defining grassroots as somebody who is in touch with the base of the community or the constituency, Baba Jamal is one person who is also a grassroots constituency. So, I would also want us to measure ourselves, right? That while this is very intriguing, that things are starting differently.
I know what you want to see. I just want to see the results so that we did analysis proper.
Let's cross over to Eric Mawena Egbeta. The Ghana Police Service is addressing the media at St. Kizito Catholic Church. That's a very important area or location in that constituency, St. Kizito. But let's cross over now to Crosby, Noble Crosby Annan. He is at one of the 10 populous polling stations, Alhaji Idrisu House 1 polling station. Crosby, what's happening where you are?
Alfred, so what you're seeing right now is the electoral officials trying to transfer the data or the numbers onto the pink sheets. You and I both know how important pink sheets are in the electoral process of the country. So at the end of the sorting and the counting process, if no objections have been raised from all the agents present, then the electoral officials will then transfer the numbers they have onto onto the pink sheets in the full glare of the party agents who will also certify the numbers that have been written on the various pink sheets to serve as evidence. But it has all come to an end here at the Alhaji Idrisu House 2 and Alhaji Idrisu House 1B voting centers here in the Ayawasu East constituency. For the Alhaji Idrisu House 2 voting center, we expected 722 votes. That's what we expected to see. But at the end of the voting process, we saw people, 226 of them coming to vote. We had one rejected.
Noble, hold on a bit for me, please. Let's cross over now to St. Kizito, where the police are addressing the press. Mawana is there for us.
About violence, it's just about come and cast your vote, make your choice, and let peace prevail.
Grace Ansar Kofi, who joined us in terms of interactions and expectations ahead of the final collation expected. Some few moments from officials of
3FM.
We'll establish a better connection to Eric Moana better in a bit to get some details of exactly what the police addressed the press about. But Noble Crosby Annan is at the Alhaji polling station, just to give us an idea of what's happening there right now. But look, the trend that we established regarding the low voter turnout is playing out in a very interesting way. Interesting in a negative tone, because in one of the polling stations, that over 700 registered voters were expected to turn up to vote. Just about 200 of them turned up to vote, is it not?
Yes, absolutely.
That
is actually the Alhaji Idrisu House 2 polling station there. It's one of the very significant numbers. In fact, we understand it should be number one in terms of the numbers that we saw prior. But what we've received from Noble Crosby Annan, who is over there, thus indicates that only 226 persons showed up and participated in this particular election. And the MPP candidate had 32, the NDC candidate 160, whereas Sanda, the independent candidate, had 33 votes. And so you see that in this particular instance, Baba Jamal is first. You have the independent candidate placing second, and the MPP candidate placing third. If you go to the Alhaji Idrisu House B, 1B as well, you also see the same trend in terms of the number of people who are showing up. 433 expected to show up. We are looking at the vote cast being just 136. Mind you, when we walked through these numbers, I did make the point that I don't think we're going to do 50% for any of them, because right from the first results, we're doing less than 50%, and that is what is playing out again. You had Sanda getting 35. You have the MPP candidate getting 27, whereas the NDC at 73. It's quite clear that he's following very, very closely in terms of the independent candidates being right behind, and it does appear that the MPP may not necessarily get a second spot, which would mean that potentially Baba Jamal's 75% projection is being chipped off one way or the other by an individual from the fold of the NDC. Again, we can look at the Pentecost Emmanuel Temple polling station, another polling station results that we can share with you, and we are focusing again
that's
on the
where Evelyn brought us earlier.
Voter turnout significant again. The expected voters 388, the ballot cast 173. The center 2, the expected voters 417, the ballot cast 187. The vote outcome follows the same trend generally, Alfred. And so
the outcome has been 30 to 35 percentage points. That's what we're seeing. 30 to 35 voter turnout, and it's not looking good. And Noble Crosby Annan is there for us at the Alhaji Idrisu House 2 polling station. Crosby, you were taking us through what the electoral officials there are doing, but we have the results. What has been the reaction there right now?
Right, so Alfred, the results, these are the results. At the end of the voting process, the NPP represented by Baba Ali, they polled 32, and that is from the Alhaji Idrisu House 2 voting center. The NDC topped or led the Alhaji Idrisu House 2 voting center with 160 votes, and then the independent candidate, Sanda, he also polled 33 votes. So if you look at the arrangements, it would be the NDC leading here, followed by the independent candidate Sanda. The NDC leading with 160, Sanda coming in second with 33, and then the NPP coming in third with 32. Of course, the LPG's Ibrahim Idrisu, he did not get any vote. So did Kano David, also not get any vote at the Alhaji Idrisu House 2 voting center. Just beside the Alhaji Idrisu House 2 voting center is the Alhaji Idrisu House 1B voting center, and we expected 433 people to come and cast their ballots here today. Out of the 433 expectation, we only had 136 of them coming to vote, and that is less than half of the number. 136 people came to vote out of the 433. We had one rejected ballot, but if you want to know the breakdown of the votes from the Alhaji Idrisu House 1B voting center, the NPP had 27 votes, the NDC had 73 votes, and then Sanda, the independent candidate, if you like, the man who came out of the NDC, he also polled 35 votes. Again, the arrangement would mean that the NDC leading here with 73, Sanda coming in second with 35, the NDC coming in third with 27. Kano David, another independent candidate, and then Ibrahim Idrisu of the LPG. All of these people did not poll any votes. They had 0 votes. So if you come to these voting centers, this is what it's looking like already. I should also tell you that we've seen some police officers, they are beginning to gradually pack up and then leave because the process has come to an end. It was a smooth voting process. There were no concerns raised by any of the party agents, any of the Electoral Commission officials. Neither did a concern come from the police service or the constituents. Neither did it come from the voters too. It was a very smooth, transparent process. The turnout, of course, like you now know, like has been evidenced throughout the day, has been very low. But it has all come to an end. We've seen a clear winner here, at least in these two voting centers, Alhaji Idrisu House 2 and then Alhaji Idrisu House 1B. The Electoral Commission officials, in the presence of the party agents, they are still filling the forms, transferring the data onto the pink sheets for future reference. Like I mentioned, you know how important pink sheets are. And then it will be signed, certified and signed by the party agents, and then it will become the proper results of the voting centers here. I should also tell you that this polling station or this voting centers, they saw the presence of some bigwigs of all the parties. Amongst them was the former energy minister, Wache Jaku. He was here when he was going on a tour to, observe the entire voting process. He visited a number of voting centers, including these voting centers. He engaged with the media, shared a few concerns about the low turnout, about the presence of the police and his expectations. We also saw some former member of parliament, like the former MP for Okaikwe North, Fuseni Issa, was also here in the early hours of the day, also to observe the process. We also saw former MP Hawa Kumsin also passing by. We saw Osman Ayariga, the CEO of the Youth Employment Agency, also. He also came here to observe the process. And then I should also mention that this is the polling center that the NDC candidates, I'm talking about Babak Jamal, who coincidentally has won here, not to the surprise of many. He also came here to vote. This is his voting center. This is where he came to vote. He also engaged with the media, and after he voted and he was speaking with the media, he was also very certain that he's winning the day. he did not want to dwell much on the percentage suggested or predicted by Global Info Analytics. Neither did a few of the party supporters who came here. They were all calling for a win. A win is a win regardless how many votes difference or regardless the percentage of win. All they were expecting is a win, and now the NDC has won. At the end of the day, when we are able to do the proper collation, proper coordination, then we will know which of the candidates has won in the constituency, which of the 5 candidates is representing the Ayawaso East constituency or the East Ayawaso constituency in Parliament to champion development for them. So that has been it for me here at the Alhaji Idrisu Center 1B and Center 2 of the Ayawaso East constituency voting process. Back to you guys in the studio, Alfred.
Great reporting there, Noble Crosby Anand from the Alhaji Idrisu House 2 polling station and Alhaji Idrisu House 1B polling stations. And as a result has been already put out, 722 expected voters. And out of that, only 226 showed up, just about 35%. Now, rejected ballot 1, NPP candidate 32, NDC, that's Baba Jamal, 160. And then Umar Sanda Mohammed, the independent candidate, 33. Kano David and Ibrahim Idrisu of the LPG both had 0. And then Alhaji Idrisu House 1B, 433 expected, 136 votes were cast. Rejected ballot 1, NPP 27, NDC 73, and Umar Sanda Mohammed 35. We've got the Ebenezer Memorial Daycare Center polling station results. Ebenezer Memorial Daycare Center, center number 1, NDC Baba Jamal 92. The NPP 28, and then you had the LPG candidate 0, and Mohammed Umar, that's Mohammed Umar Sanda, that also he got 1. In this polling station, guys, you see Umar Sanda's performance here is not too good, but that's what we were saying, that he would have a strong hold, just like any other candidate in any election. So you see some of the polling stations, the strength and mettle of Alhaji Baba Jamal is clear and evident. For instance, in this Ebenezer Memorial Daycare Center, he polled 92 out of the valid vote cast 121. Baba Jamal polled 92 as against the NPP candidate 28. And then the independent candidate Umar Sanda Mohammed 1. David Kano 0. The Ebenezer Memorial Daycare Center polling station 2.
That center beside the first results that we got. Remember that center that
in fact, there's a result that's consistent with all 3. So the center 1 and the center 2, Umar Sanda Mohammed did not show up well. In fact, the center 1, he had 1 vote. The center 2, he had 0. Baba Jamal had 55 out of the 74 valid votes cast, as against the NPP candidates 19. And then LPG, Omar Sanda, and then David Kano all had 0 each. So you see that in the polling stations that Baba Jamal wins, he wins convincingly with a very wide margin of victory. As against the polling stations that Umar Sanda Mohammed wins, Baba Jamal shows up, but then again, with a difference of 10 votes, and then the difference of 15 votes, Umar Sanda wins. So that is what will play to the advantage of Baba Jamal, even at the polling stations that Umar Sanda wins.
And the third one is that generally, Baba Jamal is winning across the centers that we've had so far. I mean, so that should enable us to easily determine what we are dealing with. So we'll know that the places where we've seen Sanda win are typically a stronghold. I mean, if the numbers are anything to go by. Whereas where we've seen Baba Jamal win that convincingly, we can isolate those ones to be typical stronghold because of the outcome. Because he's winning anyways. He's winning anywhere. I mean, so far we've not seen a single station, with the exception of the initial ones that Evelyn brought to us, where you have Sanda picking those ones up. All the other stations that we've had so far, Baba Jamal appears to be in the lead. The second spot, are you getting a clear sense of who is picking that spot?
Well, based on what we have seen so far, the second spot is a fight between Baba Ali and then Omar Sanda Mohammed, the two of them. But if you look at the polling stations that Baba Ali, the NPP candidate, came second, he came second with an appreciably wide margin. For instance, this polling station we're talking about, the Ebenezer Memorial Daycare Center, he came second with 28, as against Omar Sanda Mohammed 1. And then the Center 2, he came second with 19, as against Omar Sanda Mohammed 0. So if you go back and juxtapose this with the place that Omar Sanda placed second, here's how it played out. The votes there, that's Pentecost Emmanuel Temple polling station, Baba Ali polled 30, Baba Jamal polled 68, then Omar Sanda 74. So the difference between Baba Ali and Omar Sanda Mohammed at Pentecost Emmanuel polling station Center 1 was 34 votes. Now, if you bring that difference to the Ebenezer Memorial Daycare Center polling Center 1, the difference of the vote margin between the MPP Baba Ali and Omar Sanda is 27, right? So in the polling stations that Omar Sanda Mohammed places second, he gets more in terms of the margin of victory than Baba Ali of the NPP. I mean, if the trend continues...
For those of you who don't like numbers, you are simply saying that it does appear that Sanda is picking the second spot from the numbers so far.
All things being equal.
From the numbers so far. And if that continues to play out, it will mean that he's likely to pick the second spot, which leaves us to one conclusion.
Absolutely. We have 8 out of 114 polling station results.
Too early, like Emily was saying.
We want to wait to see. Because Omar Sanda, we're seeing him show up in the polling stations that he has some strong foot in, or in his stronghold. Baba Ali would have his own strongholds as well, even in the places that Baba Jamal wins. But Kemini, yes.
Maybe a question. Then Kemini will bring Kemini on the same question as well. I mean, Crosby was making the point that as far as the NDC is concerned, they will take any victory. They just want a victory. Would that be satisfactory? Does it matter the margin, or it does not matter? Well, I don't know where you stand on that, Kemini.
Matters, right? Because if the NDC has won well over the years, and Baba Jamal comes in, given the backdrop of the events that led him here, and he doesn't make the mark, make it better than the departed MP or even MPs before him, then the question will be whether or not even the NDC supports Baba Jamal. And I think that's a question, that's a question you've raised in the beginning of this coverage tonight, right? Because if people are making 60%, 70%, you've even been tipped to make 75%, and you come up not reaching there. I would ask the question whether or not the NDC fully is rallying behind Baba Jamal, or could there be other factors that could be leading to that? But then again, I'll be the voice of caution here, that we've got to slow down, because of these eight constituencies that, eight polling stations that we have announced, I think that we have already now seen 2 where the NPP appears to have picked up its pants and is delivering some numbers. And so we're still a far way from home to determine whether or not this is going left or this is going right or this is somewhere in the center. But what we see clearly is that Omar Sanda Mohammed is giving us a good performance that we want to even look at further. And that's where we are now. And I want us to leave it at that. I know it's intriguing.
But
it's intriguing.
There's some information as well. I'm just picking up that these polling stations that Omar Sanda is showing up strongly, he was the assemblyman in the polling station.
So I guess it makes sense, right?
That also is a dynamic that we want to place some emphasis on.
It makes sense.
Absolutely, because then obviously being an assemblyman there, the grassroots politics will play to his favor. Eric Mayonegbeta is with Rashid Tanko Computer, Deputy Director of IT and Elections for the NDC. Mana, what's Rashid telling you?
3FM.
All right, so let's speak to the Deputy Director of Elections and IT for the NDC, who we've been speaking to in some great detail. But this time, you have the results from your coalition center, and you're ready to show it to our viewers as well. Talk to us. What is it looking like? Did you cross a 75% margin you were hoping for?
I indicated to you that we're going to beat the MPP with huge margin. They thought we were joking. We've worked for it. For the past 2 weeks, we've been in the constituency, working around. The people are living testimonies of the good performance of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, and they were ready to deliver a verdict for the NDC. I'm not surprised. That's why the low turnout. If you look at the figures we have, currently we've collated 91 polling stations out of the 113 polling stations. Very beautiful resource. We've gotten almost 9,000. That's 8,597. MPP is languishing around 3,000. That's I told them they're going to get bad results. They shouldn't have contested this election. I don't know who advised them to come and contest this election.
Can we see?
Oh yes. This is our resource. It's there, live, real time. It's coming. And you see it populated. Within a few times, you see the resource coming. When you finish the polling station, it will come. That's the resource in there.
But you're hovering around 63%. 63% in terms of low voter turnout, but you were hoping for 75 and all of that. Because I had some of your supporters say even if it's 2 people who turn up to vote, you're winning this convincingly.
Of course, because of the good works of the NDC. That is why we are seeing this. As I speak now, it's adding up. We are now in 92 polling stations, and the results keep on adding. Okay, see, because it's Ramadan, it's not easy. Ideally, the election should have been postponed, but constitutionally, we can't. The Constitution stipulated that it should be 60 days after the demise of a candidate, and it's an MP. And then so we're boxed within the time. But it fell within the Ramadan time. And that is why the turnout is a bit low. But despite that, look at the performance of the NDC.
We'll talk inside again pretty shortly because we'll both go to the coalition center, and hopefully by then we'll see a bit more in terms of the numbers. But thank you very much for speaking to us. Let me quickly grab the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC as well, Mustafa Gbande, who is also here, and just pick quick thoughts from him in relation to what it is that we've seen. I appreciate you joining us as well. You're cruising to victory. From my interaction with Rashid Tanko, who has the number, you're cruising to victory.
Another vote of no confidence in the noise, the disturbance, and the pestilence of the MPP. Noise doesn't change the verdict of the people. And I can assure you that there's no going to be an election in this country that will not reflect the vote of no confidence by the people against the MPP. And that Ghanaians will never forgive them of their defraud, of the fact that they deceived the people of this country. We have lived the experience of bad governance in the last 8 years, and we are living the moments of a modest, disciplined government that is running according to the pace of how the country needs to grow. They say that there is low voter turnout, and that is because we haven't pumped money into it. For them, election is about money. For us, election is to allow the people to pass a verdict. The MPP should have come here and tout the influence and the contribution of President Akufo-Addo being a resident just here. But he has nothing to show. He's been living just here. He has not contributed to anything to this community. Now, today happens to be a market day of this constituency. And you know Zongos and our markets. Number 2, today is a working day. Unlike Saturdays where if we're lucky to hold election on Saturday, the voter turnout increase. Today also fall within a period where people are in communion with God, seeking the face of God, both Muslims and Christians. Because of these key important period that we find ourselves, it may have contributed to the issue of low voter turnout. But the persuasion is that if 10% of the people of this constituency have voted, 80% of that 10% will vote for the NDC as a clear sign of no confidence against the MPP.
I'm seeing the numbers. You're hovering around 63%. It's nowhere close to the 80% you mentioned. And you mentioned abandonment by the previous administration, you in the NDC have enjoyed more success than any other party in the history of the Fourth Republic in this particular constituency. The people say they want jobs. The people say they want development within the constituency. You've been in charge of it, and you haven't given them that. Some will say that's the reason why the people are not coming out to vote for you.
How did you know that we've come into government for 1 year, 2 months? We should have bridged the gap of defrauding this country for 8 years. Is it possible that the MPP's stock in trade and their pride is that we've stolen from the people of Ghana and we have not yet been arrested, and so they are saints? No. We have a dual responsibility. A responsibility to develop this country, a responsibility to hold people accountable. The prime of these two is that people haven't stopped having children, people have not stopped eating, people have not stopped falling sick, people have not stopped going to school. Government would have to bridge this gap, and that when you have done that and stabilized the rate at which people would have died, if President Akufo-Addo's government's foundation was what would have laid and stood on, when you have finished bridging the gap, then you can hold people responsible. And so for me, I am saying that within 1 year, 2 months, there is hope in this country. Even the fact that for the first time, we have experienced a violent-free by-election should tell you the kind of leadership that is in place. The kind of leadership in charge is what influences violence or no violence in by-elections. Even the MPP are feeling very peaceful in this election. It's a characteristics of President Mahama, it's a characteristics of the NDC regime, and they should be happy that this government is in place. And so for them to even walk into this constituency, to have a voice, tells you that they have no conscience, that you have stolen, and the fact that you are not in court exonerates you from being a thief. That is the MPP's threshold of governance with credibility and integrity. Posterity will keep judging them in every election. Like this one, he's talking about 63%. By the time we finish, I know that it will go a little bit higher. Computer is here. We already collated about 86 polling stations. We know our results. 92. We know our results. At the end of the day, what is important is that there will be a vote of no confidence against the MPP in this election. That is very important.
That's the most important thing to you. But let's look ahead to what is the expectation of the constituency here, because we've been interacting with them, we've been having conversations. Many are the things that they look forward to seeing. Top of it, jobs, dealing with drug abuse, drug addiction, and what have you. Is there a concrete plan beyond winning the seats that the NDC has for the Ayawaso East constituency with Baba Jamal?
You know, this is the first time government have consciously, through the security and law enforcement agencies, combated the issue of drug abuse. This is Nima. This is our community. If you were on red, you are still a member of our family. This government is taking a bull by the horn to dismantle such drug cartels. It's a key indicator of development in the community. Number two, this government will focus in terms of what it has promised the Zongo communities. It will fulfill. The foundation is being laid. This government, this community is expecting that when there are jobs, they will benefit from those jobs. And President Mahama's regime is a regime that every Ghanaian is happy and enjoying. And so if there were jobs, any other person from this constituency who qualifies for that job will get. The NDC's government will give what it has. It cannot give what it doesn't have. We are not a Ponzi scheme. Like they came and sang songs of development when they were doing nothing. We are not governing in that way. We are governing with honesty and sincerity. And I can assure you that the people are very hopeful of this government. The people, first of all, have faith in this government. The people understand the exigencies of time that we find ourselves in, that this is a young government that have had to bridge and hold the hit of the deep hole that President Akufo-Addo and his appointees have kept us in for the past 8 years. It is not a joke. And so we appreciate the lack of patience, the expectations, and I can assure you that President Mahama at a slow pace is delivering on what we have promised this country as a foundation that will grow this country.
Just finally, because you mentioned matters of accountability, and I'm sure you know where this is going, is a concern people have generally across the length and breadth of this country, the slow-paced nature with which you're delivering on your promise of holding the previous regime accountable. You've mentioned them a number of times. Where are we on that is a question everybody keeps asking.
I think that I belong to persons who feel that all the former appointees of the MPP should have been standing trial by now. But it doesn't work that way. There are two schools of thought. There's an issue of development and the gaps. Then there's an issue of accountability. So President Mahama is having to find himself in these two schools of thought. But if you check in the last 1.5 years, or in the last 1 year, 2 months, President Mahama have largely focused on developing the life of the people of Ghana, bridging the gap. Like I said earlier, people have not stopped going to hospitals. Will you leave these people and go chasing criminals? People have not stopped falling sick. Will you leave these people and go chasing criminals? People who have to go to schools, salaries who have to pay. Will you leave all of these important, responsibility and go chasing just persons who have stolen from this country? There is that understanding that, look, prioritize both, but bridge the gap of development first. And that is what government is doing. The fact that you have not been arrested today doesn't mean you cannot be arrested. Political crimes doesn't expire. It is true and it is factual that President Akufo-Addo and his appointees have led a fraudulent regime, but time will catch up with them. It doesn't matter how it delays, it will catch up with them. For them to even come here, apart from what you know and I know, to be shouting on top of their voice, don't worry, when we finish counting, you will see the results.
All right then, thank you very much. I'm sure we'll interact a bit more subsequently. That's the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, also the presidency. And this is what it looks like here. A lot of the officers or officials of the Electoral Commission from the 113 polling stations, they continue to come in. They go through a process, just like we saw in Akwetia, where you go through a verification process from the entrance. Then subsequently, there's some work done by the officials who are there. Then you make your way in. The projection of the results as to the polling stations, where the numbers are, and what will subsequently be a declaration, all is going to happen. And we see the police moving some headlights, right? Some very huge headlights, means they are going to illuminate this place pretty shortly. We see a bit more in terms of reinforcement as well from officials of the Ghana Police Service who are making their way here, ready with quite some gear as well, all in anticipation of quelling whatever tension may arise or misunderstanding may arise from this collation process. Not that there's that expectation, in all honesty, in terms of what it is that we've seen all throughout the day up until now. The NDC have showed us what is their provisional results, and it looks quite good for them in terms of where the results will end up, because remember, in a parliamentary election, it's a simple majority, and percentages as to turnout and all of that do not come into play at all. And so a simple majority, yes, low voter turnout has come up. They've explained it away quite thoroughly in terms of why we're seeing the numbers that we've seen all throughout. And if you know, historically, by-elections don't do well in terms of a voter turnout as well. This is where we are currently. A bit more in terms of the EC officials continue to come through, and so not quite sure when the projections will begin. But we continue to be here for you, your election command center, and we'll bring you the details as and when they do come through. Back to you in the studio.
And Eric Mayonegbeta with that very important detail there from the coalition center. We know exactly what the preparation is over there, how things are going to play out shortly. Already, we understand a number of the polling station results are being transmitted to the coalition center, where we just showed you the Ghana Police Service mounting the huge lights also to ensure that everything is in place to eliminate the area, because as we've seen in previous elections, during the coalition, one of the elements that influences violence is the darkness. Okay, when the place is dark, people try to have all of these, very questionable thoughts in their minds and engage in the nefarious activities of trying to either snatch a ballot box or tamper with the entire process. The Electoral Commission has been quite clear with their collaboration with the Ghana Police Service that that is not going to happen. We've seen measures already in place, so we'll keep an eye on how things are playing out at the Coalition Center. We'll bring you up to the minute dates and issues as they play out in the minute shortly. But let me also remind you that we have so far 36 out of the 114 polling station results here on your election command center. The NDC is showing us 91 out of the 114. And based on what Rashid Tanko computer showed to us on the camera, based on their provisional results that they have received, some 8,597. 8,597. That's the 91 out of the 114 polling station results. They say they are 63.57%. We dwelt on that to ask a few more questions as to what the NDC themselves, believe would be their own performance, because Musa Dankwa has put them at an ambitious 75%, which is going to be the highest. If this comes to pass, it would be the highest victory margin that any NDC candidate has won in the Ayawaso East constituency since its creation, since the creation of the constituency till date. We track from 1996, the highest the party has won in terms of the vote victory margin is the 70%. 70%. 75% will be the highest that we're going to see. And we'll tell you the trends shortly, Joseph, and that's what we see there. That the lowest in terms of the performance of the NDC was in the 2000 election. Even though they won with less than 45% of the valid vote cast during that election.
Absolutely. So the 2000 election that you make reference to, the NDC picked up the seat with 44.8%. If you go a step back, you see that they are down 53.1%. It dropped to 44.8%. But since then, you can just see the trend. They've been on the ascendancy at least till 2012. Then after 2012, there's a bit of a decline that brings them all the way down to 61.2% in 2020. Then the departed MP lifted the NDC up to 70%, which is the current record, which Musa Dankwa is projecting. They may do around 75, which is more than this particular number. I want us to take a look at the MPP number and keep something in mind. It's an interesting observation that I made when Maureen Egbeta spoke to Mustafa Gbande and Rashid Tanko as well, and Alfred, I want to bring you in on this. You see quite clearly that they were all talking about the performance of the NPP. They didn't seem interested in the performance of the independent candidates. I thought that was interesting, because from what we are seeing on the ground, it does clearly show that the independent candidate has put up quite a showing. And if in the long run, by the close of the polls, in terms of the coalition process, everything comes to a conclusion and the NDC do not get the 70% or exceed it, the question now remains that will it have made a difference if Sanda had not contested as an independent candidate? A lot of the time, people will say that, well, it's a by-election, it's a weekday, there's fasting taking place by our Muslim brothers, our Catholic brothers are also in the Lent period. All those analyses are things that they are variables. I mean, they are variables because no matter if each day we vote on an election day, there's something that happens. It can either be a weekday or it can be a weekend. We've heard people who even say that we shouldn't do it on Saturday because of our brothers, the Adventists. So all those are variables that are in place. The only constant that we see every time around is that by-elections generally do not record a good turnout like we see in the general elections. So that is one that we can all concede to. But what we can also not play out of it is that more often than not, the by-election results, with the exception of instances where the seats are massively flipped, in instances where you see clearly that it's a strong vote of a political party and it's flipped, generally, they follow the trend of the general results as well. And if you as a political party decide not to isolate the numbers and do the analysis closely, and you want to hide behind the fact and say simply that, well, it's a by-election, you will see your real smoothness level in a general election. And I can quickly just stay within Ayawaso, but this time go to West Wuogon. Ayawaso West Wuogon. You remember when that by-election took place after Ijaku had died and Lydia Sarah Malhassan won that by-election? The point was being made that, well, the results do not mean much because it's a by-election. People said that, well, she's won it anyways. It's still the outcome that people expect it to be. We all saw how chaotic that particular by-election was. But eventually the general election took place, and we know that the NDC currently holds on to that particular seat in the person of John Dumelo.
On that analysis, you know where Ayawaso West Wuogon in the 2020, Lydia Alhassan retained for the NPP.
For the NPP, yes.
So that's an outlier, right? But then again, the point you made has some level of validity as well.
In fact, if you go a step back a bit, you will see the trend generally that, especially when someone like Kwame Wadaku was contesting in that particular constituency, you see the trend generally that it did appear that the NDC was gaining a bit of momentum in that constituency. So, so yes, we are holding valid that it's a by-election, but we're also saying that the outcome, with the exception of significant flips, are mostly consistent with the strength of the political parties.
That's not in doubt at all. In
Absolutely.
fact, if you look
in doing the analysis, you cannot isolate and put it out and say that because it's a by-election, because it's a weekday, because it's Lent, because there's fasting taking place, all of that put together, whatever percentage you're going to get from it, you're going to simply take it as a victory.
Well, you see, that's if the victory margin is lower than any that we've seen in history, that is one.
I mean, currently, the NDC number is what, 63?
Yeah, 63. That's actually would be the third highest in terms of the margin of victory for the party in the constituency. The highest is 70% we saw in 2024. Then the second highest is 2012, 65.4%. And then also it continues in that order.
I mean, if the 63 is anything to go by, then that will put it above the 2016 and the 2021.
But here's what's striking. In all those two instances where the NDC won with a high margin of victory in the Ayawaso East constituency, the general election, the NDC won the presidential. 2012, 65.4%. John Mahama won. 2024, 70%. John Mahama won. 2016, 2020, even though the NPP won the presidential, you see the showing of the NDC in there. Look at 2000.
Yes, 2000.
Look at the year 2000, where the NDC had the lowest in the constituency. The NPP won in the presidential.
The general elections, yes,
right?
the presidential.
John Ajay Kufuor came
You want to do
power.
96 as well?
1996, you see, the late Jerry Rawlings won, but he had 53.1%. That you can say that, well, in terms of numbers, the constituency, the total valid votes cast in there was building up, okay? But then if you see the dip in the performance of the NDC in the subsequent election in the year 2000, clearly tells you how things are playing out in terms of the margins and the analysis that we are seeing right now. But I want to also look at the point that you made about how things are playing out when it comes to by-elections, right? Because in the Ayawaso enclave, now we are moving from Ayawaso East constituency. The Ayawaso enclave, we've had the Ayawaso West Wuogon by-election. But now, after the 2024 election, the NDC has exerted its hold in the Ayawaso enclave. If you look at the Ayawaso North constituency, it's being occupied by the NDC candidate now. Ayawaso Central,
NDC.
The NDC won it for the first time in the 2024 elections. And Henry Cote was here in Ayawaso East during this by-election, right? But now the NDC occupies the Ayawaso East, the Ayawaso Central constituency for the first time since its creation. Ayawaso West Wuogon has been swinging between NDC and the NPP, but then
NPP slight
the NPP
advantage
has held it since 2000. When Fremont Selpare won it, and then also the late Jaco also then took over from Fremont Selpare. Then Lady Alhassan came in, and now we have John Dumelo. So the NPP has held the Ayawaso West Wuogon constituency by far a lot more since its creation than the NDC. But now the NDC holds it. Ayawaso North, the NDC holds that particular seat as well. And then Ayawaso East. So all the four constituencies in the Ayawaso enclave is now being occupied by the NDC after the 2024 elections. And so that clearly tells you that in terms of its hold and metal and influence and impact for the NDC in the Ayawaso enclave, after the 2024 elections, they have it. They hold it. As against the previous elections where it was a share between the MPP and the NDC. The NPP was holding Ayawaso Central and Ayawaso West Wagon. Then the NDC was holding Ayawaso North and Ayawaso East. But now all four of them
yes,
for the
they're
NDC.
likely to keep that.
It's a very interesting development that you want to see things playing out.
Let's look at it from the 2020 angle. And the 2020 angle, because if you recall the 2016 elections, the NPP had significant majority in parliament. After the 2020 election, it was so close that the NPP had to bank their hopes on an independent candidate. The party had issues with Afomena in order to enable the NPP form the majority. The point being made is that since 2022, the NDC has been on an ascendancy in terms of a parliamentary dominance. From a significant gap in 2020, the NDC went a significant step to close that gap up, came to virtually the same numbers, leaving the government of the day to fall on an independent candidate to form the majority in parliament. And now we saw the 2024 election outcome to the same results playing out again, the NDC exerting that dominance. The point being made is that the Ayawaso situation that you make it out there, we can extend it to the central region, where we've seen that play out, even here in the Greater Accra region, even in areas in the Bunu area.
Searching for a dial on radio that puts sunshine in your heart in stereo. Look no further for no other than 92.7. Feel the heat in stereo. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go. Hit it.
You're tuned in. On 3FM Drive 92.7.
All right, guys, 30 minutes after 6 p.m. and we're still on here. 3FM 92.7. This is the 3FM Drive. If you're listening to us, you know what? The reason why this moment is so important, we're actually all waiting to see who emerges as winner at the Ayawaso East parliamentary results. I mean, a lot of guesses. People are expecting other people are also not surprised, but we're hoping that soon we will get to find out who wins. But in the meantime, let's not forget, on the field of the 3FM Drive and entertainment, there is an album to listen to. Today is a Tuesday evening. It's a very important moment in the music soundscape. In fact, in the soundscape of Ghanaian music history. This is very important as an album. It's one of the first that introduced a whole genre, a genre we didn't protect, but we still preserved. It's a beautiful one. I'm talking about Hip Life, and it's a man called Reggie Rockstone who had lived his life in and out of the country. A very spirit-filled person. He loves to have conversations when he meets you. A great man, very full of fun, full of life. When he first dropped this